I am here with our all-new Mercedes AMG GT 4-door 63S. Now, before I get into anything, I want to take care of some preconceived notions that you guys might have. This has nothing to do with the GT class of Mercedes. This is built on the same platform as the E-Class, and it shares it with the CLS, so it's a totally different vehicle. This is Mercedes' response to the Porsche Panamera Turbo. And notice that I said turbo. That is because the AMG variant of this vehicle is going to be the only one that you can get. There's not going to be a GT 550, there's not going to be a GT 450, it's just GT 4-door 63S, which is actually fantastic because this GT 4-door 63S is the most powerful engine that's ever been built by Mercedes AMG. This is 630 horsepower, 627 pound-feet of torque, and all that power is going to go through all four wheels in a special 4MATIC system that it also shares with the E63S. Now, all that power is going to go from the engine through a snappy 9-speed multi-clutch automatic transmission to all four wheels, and with a special launch control, you're going to get this thing from 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds. Now, looking at the front fascia here, it's not only mean and aggressive, but it's also functional. You have a nice big grille here that's going to function as a cooling unit for the engine to breathe and suck in air. You also have active aero kit right here above your front splitter to add in more aerodynamic efficiency and cooling the engine with greater aero. Now, moving to the side, I'll draw your attention to the 21-inch black matte painted AMG wheels. However, it's not the wheels that are the most important thing here. What's most important is the 6-piston AMG style brake. You can option carbon ceramics too if you want, but the 6-piston unit is pretty strong. Now, like I said, this is built on the E-Class platform. However, this GT 4-door is a little bit wider, longer, and lower for a much more aggressive look. Now, it's aggressive, but it doesn't completely abandon its elegant Mercedes roots. You still have very soft, sculpted design down the body, and you get down to these rocker panels, and that's when you get a sharper, more aggressive look, especially these black rocker panels with the Midnight package. And as we move to the back of the vehicle, we can see that these hips are flared out over the rear wheels. That is because the tires are staggered on this thing. You have 275s up front and 315s out back to give you more grip and more traction. These wheels are wrapped in Michelin Pilot Cup 2s for added grip in the summer and on track. The sloping roofline also gives it a much more distinctive shape than anything else wearing the three-pointed star. And all the way back where the sloping roofline terminates, you see that you are met with a very similar shaped taillight. It's very reminiscent of the AMG GT class, and that's on purpose. There's also an air extractor behind the rear wheels and a diffuser under the back bumper to make this thing as aerodynamic and slippery as possible. And moving down even further, we see the typical AMG 63 rhombus quad exhaust looking mean and sounding meaner. Now, a lot of this stuff is very supercar and it is a very performance-oriented vehicle, but that's not without being practical. This thing is also a hatchback with this tapered roof. You still have massive amounts of space in the trunk, and if it's still not enough for you, you have additional space under your trunk floor. Now, moving on to the interior, we are met with a very familiar design. However, there are some keen differences that you will pick up on. The center stack here is designed to emulate the shape of a V8 as you would find under the hood. Under the hood you have 4 banks of cylinders, here you have 4 banks of switches. And these switches will control things like your drive mode, your gearbox settings, your suspension settings, your exhaust, and things like that. Now, if this center stack reminds you of the GT class, that could be on purpose. This GT 4-door is an entirely different vehicle, it's on a different platform, but it does pay homage to its namesake, the GT, with things like the center stack and this gear selector. And then, of course, in front of the gear selector, you have the new Mercedes touchpad with haptic feedback. That is because of this, of course, has the new MBUX infotainment system. If you want an in-depth review on that, go watch my A-Class video on our page. Now, everything outside of the car reminds you that this is a supercar, this is a performance-oriented vehicle, but on the inside, you are heavily reminded that this is still a Mercedes-Benz, and as such, you get some of the most exquisite design and some of the most premium materials available. All this genuine wood, supple leather, contrasted stitching, and new technology is really a nice place to be in the cabin. Now, typically supercars don't have back seats, and if they do, they're pretty much uninhabitable. However, this is extremely comfortable. I have the seat in front of me set to where I would normally sit at 6'1". I'm sitting behind myself. I have about 4 inches of knee room and about 2 more inches of headroom. That makes it perfect for taking the performance and dynamics of the GT class, upping the ante, and being able to share it with friends. Now, since it is Wisconsin and it is under 32 degrees and these wheels are wrapped in Pilot Cup 2s, this makes it a little bit difficult to show you the dynamics and things, so I'm going to talk you through them for the sake of this video. The first being that this GT 4-door comes standard with rear wheel steering. This is going to help for two reasons. The first is going to be at low speeds. At low speeds, the rear wheels are going to turn opposite of the front wheels to give this thing a much better turning radius so you can maneuver around town and make tighter circles. However, at higher speeds, the rear wheels are going to turn in the same direction as the front wheels to aid in stability on track. Also, remember the aerodynamics that I was talking about before with the rear air extractor on the back wheel, the diffuser, and the splitter? Well, you also have an active spoiler. It has 4 different settings in 4 different positions, depending on how fast you're going, to aid in making this car as slippery as possible, but also maintaining enough downforce to keep all 4 wheels on the ground. Now, I mentioned the all-wheel drive, I mentioned the rear wheel steering. This also has an active diff in the back, so it manages the torque that each wheel needs to make this thing as smooth and efficient and planted as possible. You also have a selectable all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive system. The rear-wheel drive is going to be called drift mode because when you're sending 630 horsepower and 627 pound-feet of torque to just the rear wheels, you're going to get a little bit loose in the back.